The plan is to not just dissolve national borders and have the world run by unelected supranational organizations, corporate in nature. That's like the heart of globalism, a one world government of faceless technocratic bureaucrats use AI to enslave the planet. That's at the core. There are some barriers in the way of achieving that goal. The primary barrier is religion, and Christianity in particular. But in each religion, each of the main Abrahamic faiths, you have factions, some that are going along with the plan, some that aren't. The plan, how religion is being treated in this paradigm, is very similar to the way nations are being treated. They're being dissolved and unified, coagulated into one singular blob rather than distinct individual factions. And we know this, and this isn't me speculating. I'm telling you what their plan is, right? They have a temple of the Abrahamic faith that is a mosque, a temple, and a church in one on Mount Sinai, where they're telling you they're creating a new religion that is a combination of all the world's religions, or the main three Abrahamic faith religions. They want it to be conceived as the same thing when they are clearly distinct. Some factions of churches are going along with it, and they're the ones that get support of the globalist and are allowed to, wield power and authority and have influence. Then there are some churches, some factions that are going against it and that see it for what it is and that are calling it out as the Antichrist. They're the ones slated for total destruction. The Orthodox Church is not falling for the Antichrist lie. The Catholic Church is. Okay, and I know there's a lot of great Catholics out there. There's probably a lot of great Catholics listening to me. The church as an institution is all in on globalism and is one of the primary driving factors of globalism. There's a Jesuit Pope, Black Pope, who has been tasked with and is very effectively using both his authority as supreme pontiff to destroy Catholic homelands like Italy, Spain, and Ireland with mass migration that he co-signs and supports and condemns opposition to. And he's going along with the folding in of the Christian church with the other Abrahamic faiths to this one world Noahide religion. The Orthodox Church, on the other hand, is one of the only widespread global Christian churches that makes it a core mission of its activity to warn people about the Antichrist. We've shown a lot of videos from Orthodox preachers from Australia to Russia to America calling out the slavery system that's being implemented, the satanic nature of the globalist plans. The Orthodox Church is fully informed on what the plan of the enemy is and is working against it. The Russian Orthodox Church in particular, with its association with the national government of Russia, represents an existential threat to this operation. And so it's been attacked. And Tucker Carlson's talked a little bit about this. He's probably one of the only mainstream people to discuss the way that the Orthodox Church in Ukraine has been treated. But we've explained this many times on American Journal, and it's good to see this information getting out to a wider audience with Tucker Carlson's latest interview. I showed you one of these clips earlier on. But I want to go to the next clip now of Bob Anderson. I believe this is clip number 5. Bob Amsterdam with Tucker Carlson actually shed a lot of light into this. So I didn't understand the effect, the way that America actually brought this about. But it's pretty simple. Basically, you have the Orthodox Church, which isn't like the Catholic Church. It doesn't have one single supreme bishop like the Pope, who everybody else has to listen to. It's more factional. It's more decentralized. But you do have patriarchs of the Greek Orthodox Church and the Russian Orthodox Church who have purview and dominion over their churches worldwide. They wanted to split the Ukraine church away from the Russian Orthodox Church, which doesn't even make sense because the Russian Orthodox Church started as the Ukrainian Orthodox Church, just like the Russian state started as the Ukrainian state. So it's called Kievan Rus. So it doesn't even make, like, how they would be a separate or distinct church doesn't even make any sense. They are literally the exact same church, but they wanted to break Ukraine away to weaken the political and religious power of the Russian Orthodox Church because of its relation to Vladimir Putin and its resistance to the globalist, plans for folding Christians into this one world religion. And so in order to do that, because that's been done before, you can have a breakaway faction within a church. If it gets big enough, you go, hey, we think we're big enough that we shouldn't be under this called the Metropolitan Kirill of Russia. We think we're big enough. We think we should stand on our own and not be under your authority. In which case, it would be up to the bishops in the Russian Orthodox Church to give permission for them to do that. They did not give permission for them to do that. You had another bishop, I believe of the Greek Orthodox Church, who gave them permission, but he didn't have authority over them. So they just usurped the power of the church from the Russian Orthodox faction and created this breakaway Ukrainian faction that was closely associated with the Ukraine state, and of course is a trick and is a subversion of the Russian Orthodox Church that opposes the New World Order. This is a breakaway of that, going, no, we're actually the legitimate Orthodox Church, the Ukrainian Orthodox Church, and we're all in favor of the globalist plans, the New World Order plan. So this, a key component of the war in Ukraine is the attempt to break the unification of the Russian Orthodox Church to facilitate the dissolving of all churches into the one world religion. This is very high-level stuff, and Trump's guest, Bob Amsterdam, revealed for the first time to me that America was directly involved in this conflict. I didn't realize that they'd actually used the State Department to carry out this subversion of the Russian Orthodox Church. But let's go to Bob Amsterdam now.
You know who at the State Department worked on this op to create a fake church?
Yes. It dates back to 2014. We believe it began with Victoria Nuland, who, this was a big operation because she worked with the ambassador of the United States to Ukraine, amazingly becomes the ambassador of the United States to Greece. And it is, in fact, the patriarch of the Constantinople Church that becomes the one who engineers basically the destruction of our church by taking canonical control away from Moscow and taking it to himself, violating a treaty from the 17th century. So we have the United States, and by the way, this was engineered by Secretary of State Pompeo. So this isn't just a Democrat thing. Secretary of State Pompeo was directly involved.
The difference between Victoria Nuland and Mike Pompeo is negligible. There's no difference at all that I'm aware of. He may be slightly smarter. He's smarter than she is, and therefore more sinister, but they have the same views on everything.
Well, in any event, Pompeo was involved in basically having this, what's called in religious terms, a tomos granted so that Ukraine could establish an autocephalous church. This is in 2019. So the church that is allegedly now a clean church away from Russia is 5 years old.
And of course, the key thing to understand there, and he just sort of brushed over it, but what he's saying is that you had an ambassador to Ukraine who then unexpectedly became the ambassador to Greece, goes there, apparently works behind the scenes to manipulate or coordinate with the Patriarch of Constantinople, Istanbul, but it's the Greek Orthodox main church, just like the main church in Moscow for the Russian Orthodox, to usurp the authority, violate a treaty from the 1600s in order to take canonical control of this huge swath of what should still be the authority of the Russian Orthodox Church, and all of this apparently coordinated by Mike Pompeo. And on that note, I want to talk about this because again, all of this is unified. So you have to understand, whether it's, sex trafficking, where Ukraine was the number one, world exporter of trafficked slave girls, the food production, Ukraine being the breadbasket of Europe, coinciding with all these attacks against farmers, the bird flus, the GMO foods, the climate change scam. It's all tied in together. The metabiota and the engineered viruses taking place there that was actually talked about quite a bit in the beginning by Russia to justify their invasion. The money laundering taking place from the Pelosi's to the Bidens to the John Kerry's family, everybody who's anybody, they all have family who owns companies in Ukraine. It's a very lucrative, blackmail operation going on there. The energy resources and the mineral, there's so many things that go into this, but you cannot underestimate, you should not underestimate the importance that destroying the religion of Orthodox Christianity had to do with this conflict. And you'll see the various ways in which the powers that be and the left-wing media try to discredit the Russian Orthodox Church by harping on its association with the Russian government, as if the Russian government is using the church for its own control, and therefore the Ukrainian church should break away to be free from the political influence of Russia. It's absurd. It's about destroying Christianity. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. All right, we'll move on from Ukraine now. We'll move on to another story that is related but distinct. Kind of creepily similar, or at least a part of the same overall global trend. And this is actually happening. It's been happening for a little while, and I'm sorry I haven't mentioned it earlier. This is a statement from the patriarchs and head of churches in Jerusalem. They released a statement condemning the unjust foreclosure against the Armenian patriarchate and calling for immediate intervention. So the Armenian Orthodox Church has been around. It is I believe it's the oldest national church. Armenia was the first Christian nation that is still Christian to this day. And it, of course, has been under attack as well, with Armenia capturing swaths of that country. And, one of the... It's a weird conflict where, people are on the opposite sides that you would think that they were on. It gets a little bit topsy-turvy, the international alliances. When you get to Armenia, you actually have Israel selling weapons to Azerbaijan to fight Armenia, and Armenians are basically being ethnically cleansed out of parts of their country. Now, Jerusalem is basically split into different zones. There's the Muslim quarter, the Jewish quarter. One of the quarters is the Armenian quarter. It's one of the longest living populations in Jerusalem, is the Armenian Christians. But they've written a letter to Christians throughout the world begging for attention and help as they are being dislocated and having their property seized by the Israeli government. With great concerns, we, the patriarchs and heads of the churches in Jerusalem, stand in steadfast solidarity with the Orthodox Armenian Patriarch in Jerusalem in its pursuit of justice against an unjust foreclosure order issued by the municipality of Jerusalem. These actions taken against the Armenian Patriarch, based on an unverified and exorbitant Amona tax debt, are legally dubious and morally unacceptable. They say it is inconceivable that Christian institutions whose missions for centuries has been to safeguard faith, serve communities, and preserve the sacred heritage of the Holy Land should now face threat of property seizure under Israeli administrative measures that disregard due process. Particularly alarming is the municipality's attempt to enforce a debt determination without judicial scrutiny and in defiance of a governmental committee established to negotiate such matters in good faith. This reckless move jeopardizes the Orthodox Armenian Patriarch and sets a perilous precedent that could imperil Christian institutions throughout the Holy Land. This action undermines the freedom of religion, which is foundational of all other rights, since through a confiscation of assets, attempts to the right of existence to the Orthodox Armenian Church, depriving it of necessary economic resources to live and operate, and depriving the local Armenian people of the pastoral care of their church. If one member suffers, all all suffer together. 1 Corinthians 12:26. The targeting of one church is an assault on all, and we cannot remain silent while the foundations of our Christian witness in the land of Christ's ministry are shaken. We call upon Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, Interior Minister Moshe Arbal, and other ministers to immediately intervene, freeze all foreclosure proceedings, and ensure the negotiations resume within above-mentioned governmental committee in order to reach an amicable solution regarding the issue in the spirit of justice. May righteousness prevail. May the Holy Land remain a beacon of faith for generations to come. Now, this is just part of a widespread attack against the Orthodox faith, not just in Jerusalem, obviously in Palestine and Lebanon as well, as you have these ancient sites that have stood for since the time Jesus's cohorts walked on that land and founded the churches. You know, Orthodox churches that are 1,400 years old or more stood, survived crusades and blood feuds, and it survived everything until, you know, last year when Israel bombed it and claimed Hamas was nearby. Armenian patriarch, I don't know how to pronounce it. I'm just going to say patriarch of Jerusalem. We desperately urge you to share yet another urgent communique targeted and crippling taxes against the religious entity of the Armenian quarter of Jerusalem are being unjustly levied. This crushing threat can become a precedent set against all Christian communities of Jerusalem. And there's even been talk recently that they're attempting to expropriate all sorts of property from Orthodox churches in Jerusalem, not just the Armenian Orthodox Church, but the Greek Orthodox Church as well, that at this point oversees the sepulcher of Christ, where he laid after he died before he was resurrected. This is in control of the Orthodox Church, but increasingly they're talking about their pilgrims and things coming to visit the site being attacked, being treated harshly by the IDF that guards that site. And also more maneuvers like this, where they arbitrarily and in a targeted fashion raise taxes to an unachievable degree and then confiscate the property as a result without any judicial oversight or ability for the churches to legally fight back. So, or the Orthodox religion, because it's one that identifies and stands up against the Antichrist agenda, is being targeted for destruction. Obviously, the Russian Orthodox Church has had a huge swath of its congregation captured by this fake church with no legitimacy. The Armenian Church, Armenia itself, as the oldest Christian nation, is under concerted attack, and Christian sites throughout the Holy Land in Gaza and Lebanon and elsewhere in Palestine are being actually destroyed by Israeli action, while elsewhere the Armenian church property is being confiscated by the Israeli government in a totally unfair and targeted fashion. And this is the type of thing I would like our Christian nation to maybe fight back against. I think that might be a good idea. I, for one, don't want to be subject to a satanic New World Order, and I would like the Orthodox Church around to resist that, personally. So maybe you can print that letter out. I retweeted it. Here's an idea. Here's a little homework assignment for everybody. Print that out and give it to your priest. I doubt Christian churches are aware of this at all. I'm only aware of it because I follow weird accounts on X, right? Because I follow Middle Eastern, Christian accounts. I happen to see this. It's not being reported anywhere. Just go to my X, go to @HarrisonH. Print out that letter from the Armenian church begging Christians around the world for help and attention on this, and give it to your priest and see what he says about it. And if your priest doesn't care, maybe find a different church. Maybe find a new church. Okay? But Christianity can't exist without a global congregation